Hey there, folks. So I came on today because I wanted to talk with you all about Congressman from Washington, Matt Shea. I don't know whether or not you've heard about this story that is unfolding, but apparently this extremist, right-wing Christian ideologue, Matt Shea, is a part of the patriot movement, in which taking up weapons against the federal government is their means of finding progress. And basically, what happened is this congressman from Washington took part in organizing armed occupations of federal lands and, conspired, colluded, or otherwise got together with armed extremists and, even suggested using violence against law enforcement. So, the part that is just utterly shocking to me about this, and that is completely disgusting and absolutely upsetting, is that what Matt Shea did should land him in jail for a very, very long time. Like, using weapons against the federal government is a severe crime. It's a very big crime. You should not take up weapons against the federal government. And, what he did in essence was put together attacks on the federal government. And so far, he hasn't gone to jail. If you can imagine how differently law enforcement would treat a person of color, Muslim, who put together an armed invasion of federal property, you get a pretty good sense of what white Christianity receives as far as the benefit from law enforcement. Law enforcement basically turned a blind eye on this person who actively committed domestic terrorism. People like Red Fawn Fallis, she's in jail for a crime she didn't commit. She was framed and went to jail for allegedly possessing a weapon. But here's a guy, he put together three armed occupations of different federal properties, and he still hasn't gone to jail. There's no charges being brought against him. He committed domestic terrorism, and what's happening in essence is that he's being given a pass. At this point, the Washington legislature is like, you have to resign. The state police didn't kick in his door and arrest him. The FBI didn't show up with a grand jury warrant. Basically, I could be wrong, but I believe this man's white Christianity got him a pass on straight up domestic terrorism. It's hard to believe, but that's the condition of bias that exists inside of our country right now, is that a man who commits acts of domestic terrorism, if he is a white Christian legislator, gets away with it without having to face any charges. Anyway, I just wanted to contrast that to how a person would be treated if they were a person of color, a Muslim, or even a Jewish person who put together three armed occupations of federal properties. There's no doubt in my mind that if it was a person of color, if it was a non-Christian, if it was someone who's not a white lawyer legislator, then they would actually be facing charges right now. There's a high likelihood they would either be in jail right now, they would be on their way to jail right now, or potentially, if they were a black person, they might have been murdered. Because let's face it, people of color are murdered for picking up a wallet. If they reach into their pocket for their wallet, they get murdered. But this guy put together three armed occupations of federal properties, and so far he hasn't even been arrested. So, to me, this is an example of extreme bias in law enforcement. And, to me, it shows why law enforcement is held in contempt in this country and why they don't deserve the respect given to dog turds. It's because they treat people with bias. They absolutely treat people with bias, whether you're, Black, Native American, Latino, Asian, Middle Eastern. It doesn't matter. If you are not a white person in the United States of America, there's a high likelihood you could get killed for doing something simple like sitting on your front porch. Whereas the white Christian legislator, he actually put together 3 armed attacks on federal properties, and he hasn't even been charged with a crime. He hasn't even been charged with a crime. So, to me, it's as plain as the nose on my face. If you are a wealthy person of affluence, if you're a wealthy white person, you can actually commit domestic terrorism without ever being charged for it. That's what's happening right now with Matt Shea in the state of Washington. And just for contrast, there's another report that came out just this week saying that the state of Washington police, the state patrol, pull over and ticket Native Americans at a higher rate than any other person in the state of Washington, disproportionately high to the point that it's blatant racism. And how many of those state patrol officers do you think will be cited for doing that or face any repercussions for blatant racism? Because I don't think it'll be any. My guess is that not a single state patrol officer will face any repercussions for being openly racist, because the justice system in the United States is just racist. That's how it is. And the fact that I have to say this, and there's going to be people on my feed who dispute this, because the right-wing nut jobs have gotten onto my page and they're downvoting things, and extremists, from violent hate groups like the Patriot Prayer Group, they share videos around. My videos get posted in the right-wing extremist groups, and then they come onto my page and post hate and death threats onto my YouTube channel. And do you think any of those guys go to jail for posting death threats on my YouTube channel? None of those guys go to jail. In fact, YouTube a lot of times doesn't even remove their death threats off of my channel. So, to me, it seems perfectly clear that the United States is a racist state. Law enforcement acts in a racist manner, and the people, by and large, accept that we have a racist form of justice in the United States. So anyway, with all that said, I will let you guys go. I do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I hope you have a great rest of your day out there, and I'll talk with you again very soon.